Hello everyone, welcome back to another exciting video today covering the 2024 election and what will happen if the election were to happen today. Now, keep in mind that these are things that are in flux. We just saw Ron DeSantis bomb his most recent announcement. It was so bad. So now we know that Donald Trump 100% will be the nominee for the Republican Party, assuming he doesn't stroke out or something, which means that I will be deported soon. Just kidding. The point being is that we're going to see an election coming up with Joe Breezy, Senile Joe, Sleepy Joe, okay? And then we have obviously the Dawn coming on, orange spray tan, confidence high, MAGA hat stays on. Allegedly, we're saying that he's going to be one of the most energetic candidates we've ever seen at the age of like about 80. So Donald Trump is getting up there in age. Obviously, we have Joe Biden, who's pretty much dead at this point, and we're going to see what'll happen if we run the election today. Okay, that's the stipulation. Now we're going to be cross-referencing different data points from today, and by today I mean relatively recent in history, regards to polls and other stuff like that. And of course, we're talking about 2020 election data as well. Obviously, we're on YouTube, so I will say the 2020 election was very entertaining, and you guys know what my position should be on what happened there. Okay, we saw what happened. It wasn't the best result insofar as we weren't so happy depending on what side you were on. But Joe Biden did win the 2020 election. Okay, anyway, the point being is that we're going to just take the election at the face value. So right now we're operating off of a firewall of like 200 electoral votes for both candidates. So it looks pretty even at the face of it. And so that's got to be something that is going to clue you into what's going to happen in regards to the election. Now, obviously, keep in mind, things are in flux. Trends dictate everything. And so, what is a battleground state right now might not be the case, the month before the election. But just keep in mind, this is roughly what we're working with. So if you were to look at the states that were close, you could see that I have the states filled in that I'm really confident in going for either candidate. Something like Nebraska 2nd District, which was pretty close in 2016 and 2020, will be almost definitely for Joe Biden, regardless of what Donald Trump does, from my understanding. So just for that factor alone, you have to just put it in blue. A state like New Mexico, which could have been close, I had Colorado red. Now that is actually astounding. Now keep in mind I haven't done one of these videos in months, so my bad. And so there's probably some 14-year-old idiot right now losing his mind, oh my god, guys, oh blah 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 blah, Colorado. Look, listen, buddy. I'm a casual. Anyway, so let's move on to states that I think are pretty likely to go blue. If we look at the 2020 election, you have New Hampshire as a Biden +7. Odds are, unless Donald Trump wins it by a lot, that Joe Biden will win the state of New Hampshire, in which case we're just going to give it to him. Also, with Maine, Donald Trump does really well in Maine with that one electoral vote in the rural part of Maine. So we're just going to give him that one electoral vote in the 2nd District of Maine at large, almost. Minnesota. Now, Minnesota is a contentious thing because if you look at the RCP aggregate right now, Donald Trump is leading it by 1.4%. 1.4%, folks. That's going to be a small margin. But keep in mind, Joe Biden won the presidential election officially by like 4% of the popular vote, or 5, which means that, look at this. Donald Trump 46.9 versus Joe Biden's 51.3. So that's going to be a 4.4% popular vote win by Joe Biden officially, which means that if Donald Trump has a 1.4, that's a 5.8% aggregate shift, which means that all of a sudden you'll see at least a 3% switch up in the swing states. So we have to add that into the effect here. And these are an aggregate of multivariate, results of thousands of different people being sampled into these surveys, where you obviously have a decently representative amount of people asked about whether or not they're going to vote for Trump or Biden in 2024. And so you can assume that these are going to be relatively accurate. Of course, these are always wrong by like 1 or 2%, but nevertheless, we have to trust the aggregate for what it is. If you remember 2020, Joe Biden was leading the aggregate in the popular vote, and he did win the popular vote. No matter what you think, he at least won it by a couple points, okay? So just keep that in mind. Now, with respect to what poll to believe among these, obviously most pollsters are liberal, so the fact that Donald Trump is still leading, despite most pollsters being liberal slanted, means that Donald Trump is probably leading the popular vote by 3 to 4, but they're putting him in and they're penciling him in at like 1.5. So we're just going to take that at face value. With that being said, so that's a 5% difference in all these swing states. But like I was making the point earlier, Joe Biden won the state of Minnesota by 7%. So the odds of Donald Trump winning it is just not likely at all. So in which case, I'm going to put this as a blue state. So right now, it's not looking so hot for Donald Trump. You have him at 189 versus the 226 from Joseph R. Biden. Now, the thing is that Joe Biden is weaker everywhere else. And, Minnesota is not essential at all and doesn't really factor into the Trump playbook in regards to winning the election. You can look at different facts. I mean, one of the things that you'll see from 2016, and if people were around then, I was 13 at the time, you'll notice that Donald Trump almost won the state of Minnesota, and unexpectedly so. He didn't campaign too hard there. He was campaigning more so in places like Michigan, the great state of Ohio, and you're looking at the places, right? The home state of LaFraud. That place doesn't need to be, LeBron James. We call him LaFraud James. Just in case the YouTube censors don't understand that. So LeBron James is from Akron, Ohio, from what I believe, and in that shithole we call Ohio, not the great state. I'm just kidding. It's a very rundown area, but Cuyahoga County, places like this, places that used to be for Obama in 2008 and 2012, are now Trumpian. So places like Ohio are not going to be invested in, and this is part of the reason why I think that Donald Trump is going to do better in 2024. Now with Minnesota, Donald Trump in 2016 and 2020 put in some amount of effort into Minnesota. Now, with the hindsight of him losing it by 7, I doubt he spends a penny in Minnesota, which means that he'll spread those resources into other states. You have to figure in that Donald Trump probably spent anywhere from 5 to 15% of his campaign funds on advertising and rallies in Minnesota, not in other states where it was needed. And so you have to factor that in. Also, keep in mind the state of Florida, which is trending really right wing for a myriad of different factors. One of which being that there's a lot of New Yorkers coming in from obviously that shithole over there down south to my Florida, which I was just at like a month ago. And we love Florida, and so it's definitely like Sinaloa, cartel weather. It's very humid, but it's okay. And so we go down to Florida. We see these Cubans. These Cubans are very Republican for the record, and the minorities that were trying to make Florida blue, or just on aggregate, were mostly Latinos. But Latinos countrywide have been going more right wing. Now, obviously, it's an impediment to have more immigrants just generally, but in certain niche cases, like the Tejanos in the border region in like McAllen, Texas, Laredo, these people are turning more and more Republican as their generations tend to assimilate and they get smart and articulate in the English language, such as yours truly. Now, keep in mind, Florida, again, Cubans are the residual parts from the Clinton coalition, the Obama people that made Florida blue back then. Those people are voting 55% Republican. As recently as 2022, as evidenced by Ron DeSantis' victory, where he won by like 18%, these Latinos are looking pretty good for the Republican Party. Also, if you listen to these idiot liberals talk, you'll notice that they are very pro. And by pro I mean like they're really reticent to point out that DeSantis is doing a good job in Florida allegedly, and that they basically lament the fact that the Florida Democratic Party is in complete shambles. That people like Nikki Fried and Charlie Crist, turncoat Charlie Crist, got completely and utterly felted by limp dick, no charisma, no riz meatball Ron. And so with that fact being said, it seems only to be reasonable to point out the fact that Ron DeSantis, along with any other Republican that were to run in the state of Florida in 2024, will win. If you look over here, Donald Trump beat Joe Biden by 3.3% of the vote in Florida. That's a huge win. And again, he lost the rest of the swing states in 2020, but he won Florida by 3, which is like 2% more than what he won it by in 2016, which lends credibility to the fact that it'll even trend further right than before. Because again, you have hundreds of thousands of Republican New Yorkers coming out from, the COVID era down to Florida, which are now going to vote predominantly like 75% Republican. And then among that, the Cuban trend ought to keep on going more Republican. So with that being said, it seems evident to me that Donald Trump will win the state of Florida by like 6 to 7% in 2024. And that's being reasonable, okay? He could win it by 11 even. I mean, it just depends. But he's definitely winning Florida, and that's not even debatable, boys. Now, if you look over here, the facts are the facts, and Donald Trump is winning almost, okay? It's tied. It's getting closer. We love the odds now. And keep in mind this, the vice presidential candidate could be a boon, right? I'm not factoring VP unless it's like, let's say, Joe Biden and Kamala. But Kamala is a hindrance to the ticket because for whatever freaking reason, Kamala is less popular than a senile, like, child sniffer, okay? So somehow Joe Biden has more charisma than Kamala, but when you watch them, you can actually understand why. Kamala is very unlikable, so she's only going to be a detriment. And the cope was in 2020 that, she's going to get the black vote. The chick is only 1/4 black. I'm twice as white as she is black. And we're going to be talking about how, Lalo, you're brown. It's like, well, and I'm fucking white by the standard of Kamala Harris being black. Huh? How about that? Truth is, she's like half Indian, okay? So if anything, just squat on the street and shit in it because you're more Indian than you are black. And of course, that's a joke. But you know what? Some people say I look Indian, so I get to make the joke, okay? Okay? Abdul Jamar Al-Aziz, whatever. Anyway, so if you look down to the state of North Carolina, that's another state that is technically a swing state, but not really. You see Donald Trump winning the vote by 1.3%. Now, if you were following the 2020 election, y'all know what happened in North Carolina. The vote was really sus, okay? So we all know damn well that what was a tilt state was probably a lean state. Now let's not get too carried into, let's not get in the weeds about that because we love the YouTube terms of service. And obviously Joe Biden won the 2020 election, but what I will say is that, listen. The point being is that Donald Trump is likely to win the state of North Carolina by like upwards of 5 to 6%. Okay, and that's just the truth of it. They don't have a lot of Latino immigration. There's not a lot of external factors as to what would make places more blue in this election, because if you look at the prerequisite scenario, we're looking at an unpopular incumbent, an incumbent that is barely an incumbent as evidenced by the fact that there's already a looming primary in the Democratic field, insofar as just like everybody's like, okay, can somebody please God, can we get another candidate? But instead, no, you're stuck with fucking Joe Biden. It's over for y'all Democrats. It's over. What do you have to say for that? And so we're going to see this as being the truth. We're seeing a real predicament going on where we see somebody like Joe Biden being the leading candidate with a weak majority of the vote in the primary. So just off of that alone, he's going to have less support than the average candidate in any real election. Keep in mind this as well. He's not having any rallies. Have you seen a Biden rally ever? I mean, it's like 12 people. So like, are you really going to expect him to have big, roaring rallies like Donald Trump did, or even a quarter of the size of those? Not even close. You'd be lucky to fill in a girls' basketball arena, bro. I mean, like, this is like, do those even exist? I don't know. It's not looking so hot. So you have to figure in that the turnout's going to be low. That's another reason why Joe Biden is not looking so hot. Okay? And so, looking at North Carolina, it's going to go for Trump easily. And if Donald Trump loses North Carolina in 24, there's no way he wins the election. So, I mean, it's kind of a given. Just to even have a chance, you have to win North Carolina, boys. Now, if we're looking at the state of, what's going to be the next one? Let's look at Nevada, right? So, no, sorry, Georgia, the sweet state of Georgia. Georgia went to Joe Biden by 0.3%. Now, again, I have to clarify. There's some spurgs, some autists in the comment probably seeing like, by the way, I'm 16 years old, and when I was on 5th grade, I went on Twitter and I saw that blah, 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 blah happened in Georgia. Look, I understand that. I understand what happened in the last election. I get that. Again, I cannot really get into details about that, but just believe it. Believe it, okay? Trust the narrative. Don't believe your eyes. Oh, I saw a suitcase under a table. Don't believe it, bro. They were just going on vacation when the water main broke in Georgia. They were just gonna fucking scuba dive with the ballots. What's so hard to believe about that, okay? So Joe Biden won the state of Florida. And no, sorry. He won the state of Georgia. He will win Florida because he's Joe Biden. All right, anyway, okay, I'm joking. So obviously, if you look at the state of Georgia, Joe Biden barely won it. And, as evidenced by the economy, a myriad of different factors, you're looking at a presidency in which, again, you have a bad economy, bad foreign affairs, deleterious employment prospects, and you're looking at someone who cannot command a room in Joe Biden. So what inspires confidence? Okay. So by that same token, why would the suburbs that are like the most like flimsy, warm weather candidates or, people in elections, what makes you think that those people would vote for Joe Biden again? And you might say, well, actually, and all these DeSatanists, by the way, the Antichrist, I'm joking, but these DeSantis people will be like, well, we need civility. We need a guy who's boring as fuck, okay? And if you want that, you have Ron DeSantis. He won't win the primary, mind you. So they're going to say Donald Trump has all this baggage. Well, if you figured it out lately, everybody knows what the fucking baggage is at this point, okay? So to say like, oh, he's not going to understand this. Yes, he will understand this. Every like mild-mannered person understands that, Donald Trump is not the sexy option, or he's not like the most pure option, so to speak, but he's the most reasonable. And a lot of people will come to realize that closer to the election, and they already do, mind you. Again, but what about January 6th? That already happened 2 years ago. Like, what else is going to come out that's going to make the Republicans look any worse? Think about it. Everything they could have gotten on Donald Trump has already gotten out, plus more. They've spent years, like literally 7 years straight on investigating a guy like this, going through his tax returns. Oh my God, he avoided paying taxes in a legal way. Holy shit. Guys, did you know that he slept with the Playboy model? Wait, you're telling me the billionaire from New York, Playboy, slept with a fucking Playboy bunny? Oh my God, I'm so fucking shocked. Who cares? Who honestly cares? And again, it would be something else if the Democratic candidate were, clean like Obama. Not to get into his husband's history, Michael. I'm joking. No, but the point is that Joe Biden isn't clean on that record. You know, there's an underlying impression that a lot of people have in the middle that Joe Biden's a creeper around kids. There's the Tara Reid scandal. To say that he's like sexually pure compared to Trump is not accurate at all. And plus, like again, Donald Trump. Oh wow, so he had an affair when he was like 55 with the 30-year-old. You know, and you're gonna say, well, all these other politicians aren't having affairs. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Lowly me in my fucking room over here understands that. I can name like 5 people that are in affairs. I'm not going to speak about that because I'm not a snitch ass motherfucker. But the point is that, Donald Trump having an affair won't really hurt him. He literally said grab him by the pussy. And did he really lose the election over that? No, it got a little closer, mind you, but not enough to lose. And so any new scandal that'll happen, how could it be any worse than January 6th? That was the ultimate optics killer. And he's still alive and he's still flourishing. So, from that standpoint, how could Trump lose any swing voters in Georgia? I mean, he's obviously going to win Georgia by, like 3 points. And, people like Radical Politics, a lot of people that know a lot more about electoral stuff than I do, mind you, because I just gave up on like looking into it 2 years ago. But he will point out like, okay, well, the trends are bad for Trump. And of course that is. And, will this be the last election where a Republican will win Georgia by conventional standards? Yeah, of course. Because, yeah, like I said, the, Gwinnett County, these places in Atlanta, the suburbs, it's sprawling. There's so many suburban white people cucking that are just like, I do want drag shows. I do want this gay shit. Okay, well, those people are going to be long gone. But, for now, we're having an unpopular Democrat. It's kind of like it's like a waning moon, where it's like the last shimmer of light before it goes completely dark for a while there. And so I do think Republicans can win Georgia in 2024. We saw Kemp win in 22 more easily than 2018, mind you, which is, a miracle in and of itself, which is a testament to Republican electability in the state of Georgia. And yeah, Trump is unpopular for that state, but he's still going to win the state regardless. Just like in 2016, he was unpopular in Arizona for the average Republican, but he still won it regardless. And that's what we need. We need to win. We don't need to win Georgia by 8 points with a Satan. We need to be winning these states by narrow margins, but still winning them nonetheless, because that's what counts. The electoral vote, that is. Anyway, so he's going to win Georgia. Let's move on. You go to the state of Nevada. Nevada is an enigmatic state because it's really close to Republican, despite the fact that it has not gone Republican since like 2004. If you look at the state of Nevada, it went 2.4% for Joseph R. Biden. Keep in mind, it took them until like the Saturday after the election, like 5 days after, November 3rd or whatever, for them to even announce that Joe Biden won the state, okay? And again, a lot of the things that are promising in Nevada goes as this, okay? First of all, they have a working class culture. They tend to go for Donald Trump. The state of Nevada, outside of Las Vegas, which I love, by the way, is very Republican. So just off of that alone, that's going to be good because Republicans are adopting a new strategy under Donald Trump's leadership about ballot harvesting and doing what the Democrats did in the last election to some degree, and just doing it because like if they're going to do it and get away with it, then we might as well do it and get away with it, right? I mean, if the statutes bear out legally, then why not, right? So by that logic, sure, we're going to harvest ballots in these like white rural areas where there's lower turnout than usual because obviously logistically it's harder to vote. And we're going to get these mail-in ballots coming in, vroom, vroom, vroom. And Donald Trump's going to run up these margins, Washoe County, these areas outside Reno, Carson City, etc. We're going to get these old white people to vote. And that's going to help Donald Trump tremendously. Keep in mind, again, Donald Trump didn't really campaign in the state of Nevada at all. And he got within like 2.5%. That's really close. Also, keep in mind, again, ballot harvesting. That'll help by like 2%. Now that margin's down to 0.4. If that's the case, then all Donald Trump has to do is be marginally more approved of in Henderson City, the suburb of Las Vegas. And again, he already did marginally better with Hispanics in Las Vegas. He did marginally better with blacks. So if he just does a curmudgeon better across the board, plus the ballot harvesting, he's going to win the state of Nevada. And again, there's a lot of constituent parts that are really good for Donald Trump's electoral prospect, which means that he'll win the state of Nevada by 3%, in my opinion. Now let's go to the state of Wisconsin or Michigan. Okay, Michigan's a really tough one. So Joe Biden did win the state of Michigan by 2.8% approximately. Now, with that being said, the trends are really tricky in Michigan because what you'll notice is that there's a lot of constituent parts that are pro and anti-Trump. So it's a very tricky thing. So on one hand, of course, you have like the like white trash 8 Mile people. And again, I'm not even hating. I'm just saying that's like the matter of fact. You go to 7 Mile, these different places. Those people are very wishy-washy. They used to vote for Obama predominantly, Clinton, etc. But they're more amenable to Trump because of the working class populism, so to speak. the trade stuff, the NAFTA stuff. So that could be boon to Donald Trump theoretically. Now, mind you, again, there's a lot of black people in Wayne County, in Detroit. That could be an area where they're obviously using all the legal parameters to juice the vote, mail-in votes, etc. So that could be a conundrum. But like I said, Detroit is not really growing. So for them to farm more votes than they did in 2020, it seems unlikely. Whereas Donald Trump will definitely farm votes through ballot harvesting in different places in Michigan, rural Michigan, to drive up the turnout. And again, a lot of the people that voted for Joe Biden because of COVID and shit, that doesn't exist. COVID is not a problem anymore. So, which is in part why DeSantis is like bitching up, like, oh my God, I was so good for the lockdowns. That was like 3 years ago, but I don't care. So, like I said, the COVID thing, which is the thing that killed Donald Trump personally, in my opinion, that thing is not going to be a big deal, which means that, those people that are wishy-washy will go back to Trump. And again, the suburbs could be another issue, oh, they're trending so blue. And Red Eagle was bringing up this point like 6 months ago. But things are looking better for the Republicans than they were 6 months ago because Joe Biden just keeps floundering. And again, there was some when Biden took office, 6 months in, it was like, okay, well, the economy sucks, but that's not his fault. So and so sucks, but it's not his fault. But now that has had over half a term in office, it's evident that he hasn't fixed anything. So by that logic alone, it should help Trump in Michigan. And again, you might say, well, he signed the CHIPS Act, he signed this act, he signed the infrastructure bill. Well, the problem with the infrastructure bill is that, again, it's all hearsay. Like, nobody can conceptualize, oh my God, he spent $4 trillion on the infrastructure. And also the nature of how that stuff works out is that you won't actually see these things being constructed until like several years in. So by the time the election rolls around, what's going to be built? You can't really point to any like specific bridge or anything. In which case, like, okay, well, we spent this money, which means we have higher interest rates, which means that we have more inflation and more debt. But what do we have to show for it? They're not, whatever is going to get built theoretically isn't built yet. So it won't really help Biden at all. Okay? It's like saying, oh, I'm going to lose weight, so I'm going to stop eating fast food. And then you measure yourself like 6 hours later when you're hungry and feel like shit, and there's no weight lost. Okay, so we're going to feel like shit. The economy is going to get worse. Nothing's going to get built, and we would have spent all the money, and nothing's going to get built yet. Now, again, maybe 5 years down the line, infrastructure might be built, but nobody's going to appreciate that before it even gets constructed. So keep that in mind, guys. Trump wins the state of Michigan. So context clues give you this fact. Donald Trump wins the state of Wisconsin. Why? He was about 0.6% away from winning the state of Wisconsin in 2020. You just take in that aggregate that he's winning the popular vote. And again, I don't even believe he's going to win the popular vote necessarily. He could lose the popular vote by like 3% and still win. He could lose the popular vote reasonably by like 1 or 2 and still win. So I think he'd win Wisconsin by 3 to 4. It's just the facts. Okay? Now, again, ballot harvesting in these white rural areas, that's going to be key, all right? Let's look at the state of Pennsylvania. Again, red. Why? Well, look at that. Joe Biden won the state of Pennsylvania by 1.2%. But all those people that thought, oh, Joe Biden's going to ease up on oil. He's not going to be this green energy guy. Well, it turns out he was. He stopped the federal permits from allowing more fracking. Gas got more expensive. The people in Pennsylvania feel that in their balls. No homo, but it's like, again, the things are getting worse economically, and there's no fucking cope. Oh, but he's building this. He's building this. No, he's not. No, he's not. Like, where's the new construction stuff? So, again, it's just inappropriate timing right now. So, Joe Biden's going to win nothing in Pennsylvania. Anyway, Arizona. Now, with Arizona, that's a different thing. This is the state that I'm currently residing in, okay? And I know a lot about the politics here. And what I will say about the state of Arizona is that, obviously, it went to Joe Biden, anyway, by 0.4%. Now, what's different about this? Well, in Arizona, again, we put in the ballot harvesting. We resolve a lot of these issues with the election. And we say, you know what? Donald Trump is going to win over these wishy-washy people that he didn't get in 2020. The people of Arizona who voted for Joe Biden and Mark Kelly under the pretense of moderates and of civility, a lot of those people will either do a combination of vote for Trump or just not vote at all. That will kill the Democrats in Arizona going forward. So with that being said, it's not looking so hot in 2024 for the Democrats. I think Donald Trump will win the state of Arizona by like 3 to 4%. And that's similar to 2016. And so that's your 2024 election prediction. Thank you guys for watching. See y'all on the next one. Bye-bye.